Good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching on different time zones, good morning or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co-creating customized program with our world-class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, and that includes Petronas, Sony Mobile, ProLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, is because we would like to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the next normal. For those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and those who are afraid that they can't keep their team or their business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively, do join us. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader for today. Her name is Laura Kimba Yu. She is a women leadership strategist and ecosystem builder, creating and championing platforms for ambitious women to heal, grow, and flourish. Elevated into organization wide leadership roles at an early age, ranging from enterprise, NGOs, and movements by age of 30, Laura had built a multinational $1 million company in the tech sector by designing systems to successfully scale strategy and teams. Hailing from Zimbabwe, Laura knows what it's like not having the right empowerment to advance oneself, and she has been first hand the power of breaking the cycle. Yay to that. And her exposure to impact driven innovation is her travels around the world has only cemented her calling to create a world where every woman feels safe and empowered. Wow. So let's welcome Laura. Hi.
Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be able to have this conversation with you.
Yes, me too, me too. And just to share with our audience how I get to know you, I actually first heard of you from your husband who's so in love with you. That's why I said, like, this is a lucky woman.
Thank
So,
you. I am. I am.
so that's when I first to get to know you, and then we did like a project on women empowerment together with some other beautiful and amazing women like you, Joy, and then Maddie as
Yes.
well on women empowerment. And I'm so impressed of the different style and also like how articulate you are when it comes to empowering women and at the same time around leadership. So that's the reason why I've been inviting you for quite some time now. And I'm
Yes.
really glad this is happening today,
Yes.
finally.
Thank you for having me. And that's partially why I'm excited because it's had a long build up to this point. So it's great that we are actually able to have this conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. So basically, I'll be asking you about 8 questions or more. And I would like to invite, especially our live audience, to join us in this conversation if they have any specific questions, comments, or if they have like inspirations or motivations that they are learning. Out of this conversation, especially from you, to please feel free to join us and engage with us. So, the first 3 questions is just basically for us to understand from which perspective you're coming from. The next 3 questions will be, I would say, the meaty or juicy part of the conversation. And the last 2 questions are very, very open questions, which I normally would refer to as the Miss Universe questions. So, yeah, to start with, please do share with us your leadership experiences, and if you have like influencers that you'd like to make mention, or even like a leadership style that you are inclined or you have favoritism for, please do share with us.
Sure. I think this was a really interesting question for me because I started going back through kind of my, memory archives of what really has shaped me as a leader. And so as I looked back, I realized throughout my life, I always expected leadership roles,
Mhm.
whether that was, in grade 7, being a prefect in high school. And I remember, I think, especially in high school, being disappointed when I didn't get a leadership position. And so as I look back, I realized one of my greatest influences, I suppose, in leadership is my father. We have differences in how we view the world, but I really appreciate that he always set the standard very high for me. He had very high expectations. And so I grew up in this environment where I knew how to push myself, and I looked for those opportunities to really grow and to express myself. So I think that was really probably at the very start. Also, being the eldest daughter, having all of those responsibilities, taking care of different areas around the house. I think that also equipped me to lead, to take care of other people, being aware of the needs that are around me and being proactive about how do I meet those needs? What are people wanting to achieve? How can I help and support them, especially for my siblings? So I would say that was really my home environment was probably one of the key places that shaped me as a leader. I would say going from there, another thing that my father did growing up was he went to the Outward Bound school. And so naturally, he sent me there as well. And it's like this outdoor obstacle challenges. I've done several of them. I think I've done like the 7 day and at my in my late teens, I did the 18 or 21 day challenge, which also involves you, being outdoors. You spend the night out by yourself. So they spend a couple of weeks equipping you and training you for survival outdoors. And then, they leave you to your own devices overnight. And so, again, I think that's where kind of that sense of utilizing the environment, being aware of the environment around me, has also kind of shaped me and given me that sense of resilience that whatever situation I find myself in, being able to really adapt and use the resources around me to make the most of that. So I think that's in my earlier years. From there, I have been part of a very one of the fastest growing churches and movements, I would say not just in Asia but in the world. So I've been very influenced by my pastors and seeing how they have raised this multicultural, multi-generational, multinational organization that started in Malaysia. And because I came in just before the first anniversary of this church, and now it's, across the world, on pretty much every continent, we actually have a presence. Seeing how the team has grown to, I think now there's nearly 10,000 people in Kuala Lumpur alone, and yeah, several thousands others globally. So I think there's also been kind of seeing from the inside, being very involved, volunteering, serving, seeing how teams and culture have been built in this organization, and a level of excellence that I would say rivals a lot of for-profit organizations. And so for me, I think coming in at that ground level, and up till now, it's, over 10, I think maybe about 15 years old now as an organization, and being part of that journey has also given me that perspective. So I would say I think my leadership experiences have been very much hands on, right? So it's been learning from experience. A lot of it has been very people centric. So it's always been about how do I serve? So I'd say my style is more servant leadership. I tend to really look at the needs around me and how do I be useful in this situation? How can I make the most of my skills, and how do I bring other people along that journey with me? So I would say that's really how I would describe my style of leadership and the influences that have brought me here.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing us your experience, and from which perspective will you be coming from around this conversation at least. And what my favorite part is what you mentioned at the end, to summarize what you have shared with us earlier, that your leadership was learned from, of course, the experience, as well as being people centric, right? Which is really important, because at the end of the day, leadership is about people, right? Like
Yes.
you've mentioned around being the eldest among your siblings, that you have been really like thinking of ways how to take care and support others as a leader, and that is what true leadership is, right? And so, having said that, that's my next question: what is leadership for you based on your experience, right?
Yes, I was thinking about the different definitions, and there are several quotes that I would say describe what leadership is for me, and one of them is by Dolly Parton. So she's a woman that I grew up listening to her music because my dad loved country music, but I think it's only in recent years I've become more aware of her impact on her community and just how much she has done. And so she said, if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and to become more, then you are an excellent leader. And so I think for me, that's really the foundation of leadership. There's obviously a lot of moving parts within that. So I would say for me, leadership is a journey. It's a process. Oftentimes, we see leadership as the destination. We see the role models, the people that we look up to. We see oftentimes their successes. Sometimes, unfortunately, we see their failures as well, and we can learn from that. But I find that when you consider or look at leadership as a process or a journey, the barrier to entry is a little bit lower, especially for me. My area is working with women, and I find that when we break down leadership into it's a journey, it's a process of development that you can grow into, it's a skill that you can learn and develop, then it becomes much easier to adopt. So I have process that I think about, from all the conversations I've had with various women leaders that talk about what the journey of success looks like for me. So the first one is elevating your awareness. So it's discovering that potential, that moment where you realize maybe I'm made for more. There's actually more to this, and so you begin on the journey of growth and self-discovery, self-awareness, and beginning to examine your beliefs and the way that you engage the world. The second is becoming more engaged. So step two is engagement in life. You become more purposeful, you become more proactive, and you become more productive as you are more engaged. So it starts with elevating that awareness and then becoming more engaged and intentional. And that's where you begin to, again, identify what are the things that are stopping you, and actively overcoming those challenges. The next one is enhancing your skills. So it's like, okay, I'm engaged, but then at some point you realize, okay, there are areas where I could do better, I can be better. There are some areas, maybe blind spots that you had, before you start, right? Theory and practice. Sometimes in that gap, that's where you realize, okay, I need to enhance my skills in particular areas and the different disciplines that you're engaging in. And then I would say finally, well, the second from last is embody, right? So it's like now you've elevated your awareness, you've kind of engaged and become more intentional. You've begun to enhance your skills, and then you begin to embody them, right? So it's no longer just what you do. And that's where you move from, unconscious incompetence, from, complete ignorance, to becoming more conscious and becoming more competent in what you're doing. And it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes natural for you. And so finally, I'd say it's empowering others. Once you've embodied it, that's where you're really able to empower. So obviously, empowering can happen at any stage along the way. But I think once you have the skills, the tool set, once you've really embodied everything that you have, I think that's where you really begin to live your life for others, right? Because I think there are times where we focus on others before we've worked on ourselves. And so I think there is that balance. So for me, that's the journey of leadership. It's going from that point of, awareness, up until you can actually empower others, because you're embodying all those values. You have developed the skills and the competence to actually engage in life, and make an impact. So that's the long answer, of what leadership is for me.
Wow, that's really powerful, I would say. And again, to summarize it, let me post it again here on the summary. I hope I got it correctly. Elevating awareness, becoming more engaged and intentional, enhancing skills, embodying and empowering others. And it's all about working on yourself with that awareness and the becoming and being intentional about it. And I would say when you say enhancing skills, it's all about continuous learning,
Mm,
which we all are, right? And again, all this work, all this process, and all this journey for us to be able to empower others as well as a leader. So thank you so much for giving us this very, I mean, we are only starting. I'm only asking you for the definition of leadership, and yet you're giving us uh, like a lot of meaty stuff already here. So thank you so much for that, Laura. And that, I mean, in my introduction earlier, I've mentioned about the next normal. Some people call it a new normal. And
mm.
recently I also had an interview where he said like there's no such thing. So I mean, in the last 2.5 years already after the pandemic, and I would say that we're still facing the pandemic up until this time, right? Like where people are working more on a hybrid setting still. So I'm just curious to know from your experience in the last years, I would say, how would you define and describe the next normal?
Well, I think, your previous guest, I'm guessing, who said, there's no such thing, stole the words out of my mouth, because that was what comes to me is, what is normal? And especially when you think about all the things that have happened, especially over the last 2 years, it's like,
Mhm.
what is normal? Habits have changed. Hybrid and online is now normal. Whether work from home is now normal. And so I think part of the transition that needs to happen is, defining what normal is, because a lot of things have changed. Like there is no normal to go back to. A
Mhm.
lot of technology, a lot of innovation has happened over the last few years that has become integrated. I read somewhere that the pandemic accelerated technology adoption and digital transformation by at least 5 years. So that means wherever we are now, in some senses, there is no going back. You can't put the cat back into the bag. So I'd say, you can't force the things that have changed to go back to the way that it was.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have, the relaxing of restrictions and being able to meet, and, social distancing and masking mandates, all of those things. So that's, I think that's probably what people are thinking about when we talk about the new normal is, okay, we can no longer, we no longer have to wear masks when we walk outside. That's, going back to normal. So, but I do think there are a number of changes that we need to embrace and accommodate. You can already see some of the friction in leadership, and I think the challenge for leaders is to continue growing. I remember reading a couple of weeks ago where, one leader said, no, you can't keep working from home, and others are saying, work from home is the new normal, right? It's the future of business and enterprise. So I think it's going to be a wide range of skills. Definitely remote work, finding ways to be productive, finding ways to continue to nurture culture, finding ways to help people continue to grow and step into their roles and be engaged in their work remotely or in hybrid situations. I think that's what the new normal will look like, and it demands a higher level of leadership, where you can't just operate by walking around and staring over people's shoulder. Now they actually need to buy in to what you're doing, otherwise they are disengaged. You can't see what's happening right behind the screen. And so I think it's a higher level of leadership that we will need as we engage this new normal.
Thank you for summarizing that for us, as if you have a magic ball in front of you. Yeah, and again, like whether people are like believing on the next normal, new normal, or if there's even defining of what normal is anyway, right? Like what you've said, it's really like what happened in the last 2.5 years, I would say, is also like a silver lining and much of an opportunity for all of us, to like reflect on some things that has to change. And like what you've said, there's no coming back. Like especially in some of the habits, the technologies, and like again, there's like a lot of changes that are happening, right? And it's very interesting. I just had another conversation before this interview, and I'm really glad, like, some organizations at least are like having this thought, or this, yeah, we cannot have these anymore, like. And it was like for most is a silver lining, I would say, that yes, we accept this, and this is actually helpful. We have maximized a lot of things, and we would like to optimize a lot more things
Mm.
because of this experience that we have during the pandemic. We've actually, like, the commute, the time that you spend to get from one place to another alone, like, and the opportunities to be more global is easier nowadays, right? You're in
Absolutely.
Malaysia, I'm here in Singapore, and we are in the same conversation.
And this
uh,
is now normal.
exactly, right? So that's why it's like it's how you would probably like make use of these opportunities, right, at the end of the day. So yeah, I really appreciate that powerful definition or description of what next normal is from you. So I mean, even before the next normal, we've been, both of us work in the corporate and now working with corporate leaders as well. So what would you say would be the top three problems that most leaders do face?
I would say, uh, and probably you've heard this before, is culture, right? And the word culture actually comes from the word cultura, which means tilling the land. So,
Mhm,
in a sense, it's a figurative way of like how are you caring for the environment, and now it's the mind and the soul, right? So
mhm, mhm,
culture is definitely a big one. Retention, especially as you have. Now millennials are the largest workforce in Malaysia, and I imagine globally as well. So it's like, how do you engage and how do you retain them? And as well, just talking about those leadership styles, right? So how do
mhm,
you not just retain them, but how do you create opportunities for them to grow because they have a different value system? So, as a leader, how do you create those opportunities that meet in the middle, where it meets their values while also meeting, your own KPIs and your own bottom line? So, I would say those are probably some of the top problems. And again, especially when you have a distributed workforce, with culture, it really comes back to people. So whether you're bringing in the right people so that you can actually retain them, so it starts with all of those systems being in place, being very clear who you are as a company, and what you're offering. I just remembered there was a meme I saw in one of the Facebook entrepreneurship and startup groups, and the it was like the employer was taking back, the employee was taking back their own power. And so they had created packages for, they were in the hiring interview. And so they had, different tiers. The basic package for me as an employee, I show up for work, I show up on time. Then they had a premium package. If you pay me a bit more, then I will be much more engaged. I will respond much faster to you. And if you pay for the highest tier package, then I'll be able to give you overtime. I will work extra. I will, respond with a smile on my face. And so that's kind of the environment that we're in, where employees or the teams that we're working with suddenly feel like I do have value. It's no longer just the company that in a sense is the top dog in this conversation. The tables are being turned, and especially with the younger generations, like the values are different. And so it's really that meeting in that middle, and understanding how to engage, how to retain them, and how to continue to nurture them, especially when they're high performers. You want to be able to keep them on your team. So really managing those opportunities, giving them that responsibility, despite sometimes their young age or inexperience.
Yeah. So did just making sure before I flash uh the summary. Culture is number one. Number two is retention, and I'm missing number three, which is
Number three was engagement and opportunities. So how you cultivate your team with those opportunities for growth.
thank you. I put that together with my retention. No wonder. Okay. So yeah. So I was right about it. Culture, retention, engagement, and opportunity to grow. Thank you so much. And and I guess that's the reason why I've been really excited to have this conversation with you, because like from the start you've been giving us like very meaty information, and I love that people would actually hear about like your insights on this leadership, and I really loving the conversation, so thank you again.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, and of course we don't want to leave them with these problems, right? We wanted to like let them know how we can actually address all these problems, because at the end of the day, challenges can also be turned into opportunities.
Mm.
So what would you say would be the important leadership capabilities or skills that a leader must have in this next normal to continue to lead effectively?
So I was thinking, so with regards to this, I would look at it slightly differently. So
Mhm.
while we have the capabilities and the skills, I think there's also the environment in which you are utilizing, right, these capabilities and skills. So I would say part of that is being able to negotiate uncertainty, because previously we've had, like, oh, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan? But now it's like, okay, what will you be doing in 5 years? It's we've never had control over that, but now we are much more aware that we don't have control. So I would say, I think that ability to navigate uncertainty and with confidence, right? Because at the same time, you don't want to completely lose the rails. We don't know what we're doing, but having confidence and navigating that uncertainty. When it comes to culture as well, I think an important consideration within organizations, and just different environments, right, is the understanding the roles and the opportunities for women leaders who are rising, shattering the glass ceiling, so to speak. And so I think part of that is, as one of the things that is contributing to the gender pay gap narrowing, is actually education. And over the last few years, more and more women have actually been going into schools, graduating. And so when we look at those numbers, we are actually coming to that point where the gender pay gap is narrowing. Women are negotiating more. Like there's fruit, right, from all the conversations that have happened over the years, over the people that came before us. And so, again, when it comes to culture, it's are we creating those opportunities for women leaders to rise? Are our organization environments actually helpful, or are they stifling that? And so I know sometimes in Asian cultures as well, we need to take that into account. How are we doing? How are we doing that, right? Without just appropriating a completely Western mindset, but creating opportunities to speak up, to be heard, and actually taking some of their concerns seriously. I think that's one of the challenges that organizations need to face, especially when we're talking about culture, we're talking about retention, because I think even the men are much more aware of some of these disparities, and creating a toxic work environment for women will actually drive away a lot of the younger men as well, because they are aware of these issues. We call them the connected generation, right? This digital generation. So it's no longer just about what's happening in your company. They know what's happening everywhere, and they're bringing those expectations and those standards with them. So I think it's really just being very conscious of women leaders, the environment that you're creating, because it affects everyone within that organization. So obviously, leadership styles need to change. One of the interesting things, as I talk kind of the from the technology and the digital side of things, is Web3. Which is coming up in terms of like blockchain decentralization, is a very collaborative space. And I think as leaders, especially as the world is heading in that way, where nearly every company now is a technology company, right? So even the leadership styles that need to happen, you don't need to know all the answers, but you do need to know where to look, and you need to know that you don't have the answers, so that you can actually tap into the team, find the right resources, which are, much more easily accessible now that the world is global and local at the same time. So I think preparing for that collaborative leadership style will be one of the ways that, again, you can begin to shift culture, increase that retention, and that engagement and opportunities, because the people that you're working with have a lot to bring to the table. And I think the more we give those opportunities for them to actually share their experiences, to continue to grow, that's really where the value is as a leader. So I would say those are some of the skills and capabilities in the environment that we're going into that will be very helpful to continue to lead effectively.
Yeah, and I remember this conversation as well we had in the previous summit where you also
Mm.
participated, where the Javed, who's the group COO of AirAsia, mentioned that collaboration is queen. If cash is king, collaboration is queen. And I think that also like collaboration has heightened in the past 2.5 years, where like things became more global and easily accessible to most people. And like that's what we have been doing as well when we actually created the women empowerment conference last time, right? And it's
Yes,
all about
a
collaboration. And
great collaboration, if I say so.
yeah, thank you. So like, understanding how can we leverage from each experiences and strengths of each other, right? Like me conceptualizing and organizing the event, and you and the rest of the amazing women, Joy and Maddie, talking on different stuff, but actually um like integrating it together around women empowerment, and that was really an amazing experience. So
And,
again,
and I think that's a perfect case study of what leadership looks like, because to some degree, leadership is creating that platform so that people can plug in all their different skills. And you don't need to do everything, you don't need to know everything, but it really is. that is that collaborative environment that we're in. So yeah, so again, thanks and a great job with that.
Thank you, thank you. And again, that's what I've been hearing as well a lot in the recent summits that I have been attending, where they would say like, how can you put or have joy within your organization? And it's really simple. It's just being able to leverage on each other's strengths and being connected or connecting it in order to create like the vision and in order to create amazing things, right? Because when we are together, we can create more things, more amazing things, and on a faster pace, on a better ways, right? So it's just about collaboration. So thank you for reminding us. And before I proceed to the next question, I just want to recognize Sanoop for giving us his sign here of okay. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, this is an invitation for those who are watching us live or even during the replay to type in your questions, your comments, what you get out of this conversation. So, and that would lead me to my next question. We've been talking about continuous learning, the importance of enhancing self. So, what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in order to thrive in the next normal?
I think there's and tying this back to the previous point we were talking about, because you mentioned things like bringing joy into the workplace. I think part of the role of learning, leadership, and transformation is recognizing the changes, recognizing the needs of the teams that we're working with, the people we're working with, and so things like I think what came to mind for me is like mental health days, right? Like before, you needed, a crisis or an emergency to take time off, whereas now we are becoming more aware of, burnout, and there seems to be a push against hustle culture, and
Mm-hmm.
that constant go go go. Work is no longer just the sole pursuit, right, of people's lives. And so I would say part of the role of learning is it starts with unlearning
Mm-hmm.
some of the way that we've done things before. It really is about unlearning in order to really learn so that we can thrive. And I think as leaders, continuous learning is key.
Yes.
Otherwise, you will be left behind. Again, as we talk about what people are looking for, are you yourself equipping yourself? Are you yourself staying at the forefront? Are you yourself investing in yourself, in your own growth, so that you don't become a dinosaur, right? At the end of the day, and it's like, yeah, you can imagine, right? It's like in today's world, as exciting as it would be, to see a dinosaur, Jurassic Park, we all know how that story ends. So you do not want to be the dinosaur that's walking around. So I think it's really critical, just to continue learning, to keep investing. Again, coming back to even the idea of what's normal, right? Daily phone usage, just how much we are now connected to our phones, even compared to 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, right? So it's even productivity, right? How do you be more productive when you have this thing that's taking up your time? So really managing that, helping our teams to manage that, because there's so much information that's coming their way. So whether it's information overload or really just
Mm-hmm.
keeping up with the rapid pace, I think systems, improving our systems, improving our automation, leveraging, AI, machine learning, finding ways to optimize our businesses. Is one of the things that will help to manage kind of this constant flow of information. So I think really learning, understanding what are the opportunities that are out there, what are the changes, becoming even more data driven. As a leader and as an organization, so that informs, you are investing in the right things at the right time. So being really conscious of those metrics, and all of those are it's you can spend a lot of time just learning about each of those different areas. And really, when you begin to put it together, I think that's where transformation is. And I'd say a lot of companies are already doing this, but
True.
there's always room for growth, and for improvement.
Yes, and it's important for us to be able to not only manage time but also to manage a lot of things around us. It's about creating systems. It's about optimizing those access that we have, not only in technology but also in the team that we have, like leveraging on their strengths, not just because of the title but also of like what can they do more within the organization to
Mm,
transform them, to actually give them like when because when we actually leverage on our strengths, on what we can do, our superpowers as we say, it's really like brings out also the joy in us, right? So, and again, like what you've said, it's about like managing that to be more productive and to leveraging on the data as well available to us, right? As well as the technology available to us to in order to thrive in this next normal, whatever
mm.
it is.
Yeah,
So
and relating to what you said as well, Marilyn, I think part of that is, you do need to optimize, because having
yeah,
a high performance team is a it is an advantage as an organization. It's either that or being very bloated. So if you can actually find ways to leverage, those opportunities, those growth for people to really, bring their best to the table,
mhm,
that is a competitive advantage, as a
yes,
leader, right? Just imagine if your own unit or your own team begins performing at a higher level. I think there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity, and it becomes very exciting
exactly.
to work in those kinds of places.
Yes, very true. And like I look forward to seeing more organization or communities working that way, right?
Yes, I think that's why we're having these
This
conversations.
conversation, exactly, exactly, hopefully to inspire others to to be reminded of like leveraging on each other's strengths. Yeah, so that leads me to my next questions, in fact my last two questions, which is like if you have a magic wand that you can use, what will you do with it?
Well, I think this was, my one of the things that I'm passionate about is making the world a safer place for women. So it's really, for me, it's how do you create an environment where everyone is flourishing and
Mhm.
every woman feels safe and empowered. So really, like if I had a magic wand, that's the one thing that I would do. And I'd say maybe the way that I would do this, if I was like, okay, magic wand, how do we do this? Is creating, I think, a sense of perspective. And I think sometimes I find this for myself, right? I grew up in Zimbabwe. I lived in Melbourne, Australia for a couple of years before I settled here in Malaysia. So kind of having all these different experiences, being in completely different cultures, different socioeconomic contexts. Um, I find that sometimes I take certain things for granted, and I don't always have a deep sense of gratitude, and I think sometimes it's losing that sense of perspective, because I take for granted the things that I have. So I would say, I think if there was a way to help people gain perspective, to actually know um, how much they have to be grateful for. So the Bhutan Center, there's a center for like gross national happiness, and they actually have a scale for measuring how happy you are. And one of the things that happens is like on this 10 points, you begin to realize, actually, I'm happier than I am. I have resources, I have electricity, I have access to food, I have shelter. And almost when you begin to kind of really quantify all the things that we have, I think that's what creates that perspective. And I think with that, I think that is what would help create that space of flourishing and empowerment, and joy. I think that word has started coming up. So yeah, I think if it was that, that's what I would use my magic wand to do.
Wow. I really hope that you have a magic wand because I would wish the same as well. Yeah, but at least through the work that you're doing, I would say, as if without the magic one, you've been already doing this, like by empowering women and empowering others, leaders as well, from different um, places, from different communities, from different organization. You've been actually inspiring them to flourish, to be empowered, and to have joy by making use of their strengths as well, or superpowers. So at least even without that magic wand, um, this is already something that you have been doing. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so that leads me to my last question. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And since you can best answer it, please do answer it for us as well.
Yeah, and so naturally it would build on my magic wand question as well. um I think the question I would ask is, are feminine leadership qualities really an advantage? And I think this is a question that I can answer because I've asked myself for so many years. Like with my own journey, again, being a leader, and then kind of going through different circumstances that caused me to question my own leadership style, my own leanings as a leader, and really wondering and having conversations where women are like, are my qualities actually an advantage? And the short answer is yes. And a couple of years ago, I gave a talk on the invisible advantage.
Mhm.
And I believe this is, the more women that we are able to empower. So for me, it's, like helping women heal, grow, and flourish, right? So the more women I can help heal, grow, and flourish, the more advantage the world actually has. That we become not just invisible, but we become, a very valuable resource once we are activated, once we actually bringing our best selves to the table, once we show up with confidence. I had a conversation with a professor from Pepperdine University, and we are talking about imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
And so one of the things is, I never thought about the fact that imposter syndrome is actually systemic.
Mhm.
And so we were talking about how, when women face challenges, they feel frustrated. And what actually happens is we internalize those challenges, and then we begin to question ourselves and question our capabilities and what we can bring to the table, when actually it is systemic, but then we internalize it because we don't realize that's what's going on. That's the environment that isn't supporting us to flourish. So I would say, yeah, like your leadership qualities are an advantage, right? Like when
Mhm.
you are able to really be your best self, the world will benefit from who you are when you show up with your
Yes.
power, in your authenticity. And I think we are becoming, the world is so diverse and so much more accepting. And we need every single person, we need every single woman, we need every single leader to really embrace themselves, so that they can really make an impact in the world. And I think that's really the question. Are your leadership qualities an advantage to you? Yes, they are. It's really finding ways to make it your competitive advantages, really enhancing those skills, embodying it, just kind of going back to what is leadership, right? When you enhance and you embody it, then you'll really be able to utilize it and reap the fruit and the benefit of that at the end of the day.
Yes, that's an amazing question. I mean, like, although, like, when you say feminine leadership or it has to be women, right? Or because I also hear a lot
Mm.
on feminine energy as well as
Yes,
like qualities that leaders must also have in order to thrive more than usual, right? So
absolutely.
yeah, and again, it's really good that we are gaining more and more awareness, and more people are reflecting and getting more connected to this, like what you say, because it's really like an advantage for us if we are to make use the feminine energy, or when we
Yes.
empower more women as well, in this in any way, from organizations to communities. And that's also the like what one of our hopes while why we are having this conversation today, to really to inspire more women to step up, to speak up, and to also like show up, because you are amazing. Right?
Yes, that's right.
And yeah, I really like I was like still like my attention was caught with the introduction you've mentioned around also healing.
Mm.
And again, like sometimes we just need to heal, so that we can grow and flourish more, right? And it's really true for most women, especially like with the experience and like how the culture is in most cases, especially in Asia, right? So so i i, I really like encourage everyone to like work on healing yourself and believing in yourself. um to be able to like to exude that energy, that and all the amazingness in you.
Yes, I love that word. The perfect word is yes, to exude everything that is within you.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much. Before we end this conversation, is there any other message or um, point that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I think just I think a quote that I probably just want to end on is it's part of it is embracing being uncomfortable. And so
Mhm.
the quote says, "It's only after you've stepped outside of your comfort zone that you begin to change, grow, and transform." And I think if there's any way of describing that journey of leadership, that's really it.
Mhm.
Constantly stepping outside your comfort zone, changing, growing, transforming, and bringing others with you on that journey.
Wow, that's a really beautiful message, and we should like all work on that, right? Or towards that, right? On really embracing this. Like, definitely, there will be more and more uncomfortable situations and uncertainties that we're gonna face, and it's all about being comfortable on that, or stepping out of that comfort zone, like what you've mentioned. So, thank you so much for that. Ending message, I would say. And thank you for this very authentic and insightful conversation with you. And of course, I would like to thank our audience as well, both live and those who would watch this on a replay. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully, this inspired you. And hopefully, the interventions that we are creating also creates an opportunity for us to be able to create a better world to live in. And just an invitation before we end this conversation to stay tuned for our next session on Thursday. And also for those who are based in Manila, especially in Metro Manila in the Philippines, I'll be there tomorrow. Tomorrow, so I'll be I'm so excited to meet some of the clients already, despite the situation. So it's been a hybrid situation still, but I'll be meeting some clients in the Philippines face to face again after 2.5 years. So if there's anything that we can help you with, and you'd like to bring the conversation on the table on how we can help you, feel free to contact us or PM me. Um, as well as if you want to engage as well, Laura, for any speaking engagement, any training, connect with us as well. So thank you so much again, everyone, and looking forward to like collaborating with you as well, Laura. And for everyone, do stay safe.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye bye.